Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, How Baylor Scott White, Snowflake, and Verato Built a Scalable Customer 360 to Deliver Personalized Care. My name is Mackenzie Puttesy with SmartBrief, a future B2B company, and I'm excited to be your event host for today's session. Now, in June 2024, Baylor Scott White Health set out to replace IBM Initiate and unify 16 million patient identities and 30 million consumer identities across Epic, Snowflake, and joint venture systems. Starting with customer data and then provider data, they aim to create a single trusted view that could power analytics, digital engagement, and growth across the enterprise. Here we are a year later, or a little more, and we now have the opportunity to talk about the results of this effort. Today, we'll learn firsthand from Baylor Scott White's digital and analytics leaders on how they built a phased customer 360 strategy and then activated that data in Snowflake's healthcare and life sciences data cloud. In tandem with industry experts from Snowflake and Verato, today will be a candid look at the architecture, governance, and lessons learned so you can accelerate your own journey from fragmented identity to a scalable analytics-ready customer 360. Let's quickly introduce our speakers and get them all up on stage as well. So we've got Nick Orser, who's the Senior Director of Solutions Consulting at Verato. He'll be sort of leading and moderating this conversation today. We have Cody Campbell, Director of Information Services Operations for the revenue cycle at Baylor Scott White Health. We have Varma Gautumakala, who's the Director of Data Platforms at Baylor Scott White Health as well. And we have Todd Crosland, the Global Industry Principal of Healthcare and Life Science at Snowflake. So gentlemen, welcome to the stage. Excited to have you all here today. Very exciting conversation ahead of us. And Nick, I'm actually going to hand things over to you, sort of take the next step, do some further intros, and get everyone set up on stage here.
Right on. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mackenzie. And thank you everyone for joining our webinar today, where we're going to learn, as Mackenzie said, we're going to learn how Baylor Scott White worked with Verato and Snowflake to build this customer 360 to enable more personalized care. And we'll hear from Cody, Varma, and Todd in just a few minutes. I'll ask them questions, I'll moderate a discussion, and I encourage everyone in the audience to chime in with your questions to help balance that discussion as well. We'll hear from them all in just a few minutes around topics like, how do you build a customer 360? Why do you build a customer 360? What are some of the challenges? What was the impetus? How do you get organizational buy-in to do that? And where are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to sort of around the future of that? But for now, I'd love to just have everyone, Todd, Cody, and Varma, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, maybe starting with Cody and Varma, and telling us a little bit more about Baylor Scott White.
Hey, Nick. Hello, my name is Cody Campbell. I'm a Director of Information Services for Baylor Scott White. I've been here since 2019. I've been in healthcare IT since 2009. I'm currently responsible for managing our rev cycle, HIM, Epic reporting and integration applications, and I support the entire system. Baylor Scott White is the largest not-for-profit health system in Texas. We have 52 hospitals, over 1,000 clinics, and over 7,200 providers that we support. We're very proud of our size and the impact we make across Texas and our fellow Texans. I'll hand it over to Varma and he can tell us a little bit about himself.
Thank you, Cody. My name is Varma Gautumakala. As I think earlier introduced, I'm Director of the Data Platform team at Baylor Scott White. I've been with Baylor Scott White about 10 years. Actually, it is one of my first main healthcare role. And as part of my team's current responsibilities, basically building the big data platform to support our customer analytics and the journey work we are trying to do around customer, basically. So before that, I've done some consulting work for a while and been in the financial sector for a while. So nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Cody. Thanks, Varma. Todd, do you mind introducing yourself and telling everyone a little bit about Snowflake too?
Yep. Sure, great. Thanks, Nick, and thank you to Smart Brief, and thank you to Verato and for Baylor Scott White. I have to say, I particularly love this because I'm based in Texas. I spend time all around the world, but I really love the fact that this is supporting, someone that's right in my backyard. So huge thanks to everybody for doing this. So I am Global Industry Principal for Healthcare and Life Sciences. I am a former CIO, former Snowflake customer, first customer to put PHI in Snowflake way back in 2016. So I've been with Snowflake now over 7 years. And I'd like to think that my job is kind of playing matchmaker like this and finding organizations like Verato to be able to provide these great capabilities to customers like Baylor Scott White. So looking forward to this. But that's kind of what the concept to get away, to take away from a Snowflake perspective is how do we bring AI, how do we bring technology, how do we bring these capabilities to our customers' data and activate that. And I think that's a great example. And as we walk through this, you'll kind of see how all that works. So pleasure to be here. Thanks again.
Thank you, Todd, and thanks, Cody and Varma. Thanks all of you for joining. Truly, for everyone else on the phone, everyone else on the webinar, we've got some heavy hitters with us, Cody, Varma, and Todd here. So please do chime in with questions throughout the webinar, and we'll be sure to try to get to those. I'll spend just a few minutes here walking you through who Verato is and sort of the services that we offer, as well as what we mean when we're talking about Customer 360, sort of through our lens, just to set the stage for the rest of the webinar. And then the bulk of the webinar, as I said earlier, will be this moderated discussion. So just super quickly, we at Verato, for those who aren't familiar, we have over 100 customers, primarily almost exclusively in healthcare, health systems, healthcare payers, health information exchanges, state and local governments, including departments of health and human services, even healthcare technology platforms embed us within their tech stacks. And we have come to market with a platform that we call Verato MDM Cloud, MDM being Master Data Management. And it delivers what we call identity intelligence. What does that mean? Well, it means being able to build complete and trusted 360-degree views of people, of patients, members, customers, providers, including clinicians, locations, and facilities and organizations, and the networks that define those, the relationships between all of those. So being able to build those complete and trusted 360-degree views relies on having some next generation capabilities within the platform. Extraordinary accuracy being the foremost, meaning we can tie together your record for patient Rebecca Smith and your record for patient Becky Jones together, even though their data looks very different, with extraordinary accuracy, so that you can build that complete picture of patient Rebecca's clinical health and clinical journey and clinical history, and tie that to other interactions and engagements you've had with her, and then ultimately unify that in Snowflake and across the enterprise. Being able to layer in additional data enrichment, Verato supply data enrichment on top of that picture. On the patient and consumer side, that can mean things like outreach data, social determinants of health indicators, socioeconomic status, demographics, psychographics, interests and affinities. On the provider side, that tends to be things like affinity, affiliations and service volumes and license and taxonomy codes and specialties and all that good stuff. Digital identity verification to know that someone is who they say they are when they're presenting, so that you can then better tie their data together behind the scenes. AI-powered data governance to build the single best view of all this data about a person, and then advanced insights built on top of Snowflake. And we'll hear more about that a little bit later. And all of that is to power a wide range of use cases. Customer 360 being the one we'll focus on today, being able to build this complete holistic view of a particular person. Analytics and AI, of course, interoperability and cloud transformation. All these use cases and initiatives rely on having this accurate identity foundation. Have I been able to unify all of a patient's or providers or customers or members' data together in order to be able to build on top of that these analytic and AI models using that high fidelity data? So that's a little bit about Verato. How do we fit into this broader picture with Snowflake of this concept of Customer 360? Well, you might have multiple different data sources being captured across CRM and EHRs and labs and billing and credentialing. And each of those data sources has records about people and locations and facilities and this data that you need this single best view of. And as that flows into Snowflake, you want to be able to master it. You want to be able to unify it and enrich it and resolve the identities with this extremely high degree of accuracy that's more accurate than anything else out there on the market, And so we've got this native app to help facilitate that. And then once it's been mastered and unified and enriched, you can then model and transform that data, build analytics and AI models on top of that, and then ultimately use that data, that high fidelity data foundation, to power use cases around care management and analytics and outreach and customer service and engagement and a wide range of other downstream impacts. This is a little sneak peek of that Snowflake native app that Verato has built and is in the Snowflake marketplace that we heard about a little bit earlier. It's about modeling and mapping and transforming the data and making sure that it adheres to the Verato data model, being able to extend that data model, being able to map and manage your data so that it ultimately flows in and gets mastered. And then what does it mean to get that data back, and how can you build on top of that, and what does it look like once it's been mastered and unified and enriched by Verato? And here's a sneak peek of what that looks like. This is actually through the lens of the Verato stewardship interface, but all this data, most importantly, that you'll see here, can be delivered into Snowflake so that you can build analytics and AI models on top of it, so you can power customer 360 journeys and initiatives. And so this is that 360, what Verato considers to be a 360-degree view from a master data management perspective of a patient, Rebecca. What does that mean? Well, it means first and foremost, we're assigning a unique ID, what we call a link ID, that unifies all of Rebecca's records together. So any data you have about Rebecca, you can link together with this link ID, because all records for Rebecca from across all your disparate data silos will be assigned that same link ID by Verato. And then you can understand what sources, what source systems and records do you have for Rebecca across all of your disparate data silos? Where have you seen this patient before? And what are the unique local identifiers, like MRNs, that have been assigned to this particular patient that you can then unify together into this single view? What are the relationships that Rebecca has? In this case, what are her household relationships? Who else belongs in that household with her? What are the master data attributes? What's the best version of her phone or email or address or name? And then extending that data model to capture the best versions of attributes around consent and preferences, or being able to understand her insurance information. And then, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, being able to supplement that with Verato supply data around things like outreach information, interests and affinities. What's her socioeconomic status? Does she have access to transportation? What's her occupation look like? And all of that can then complete the picture for Rebecca for you in Snowflake, and then you can ultimately build on top of that. So that's what Verato means when we say Customer 360. But I'd love to hear from everyone else in the group, what does Customer 360 mean to you? And maybe I'll start with you, Cody and Barma. Like, how are you defining this? How does Verato and Snowflake fit into that vision? And then Todd, if you want to add some color on top of that, I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, I think I'll start. No, thank you. For us, at least from the big data platform perspective, what we are doing is, for us, is creating that comprehensive view of and also unified view of a customer, basically. By bringing all the data we have, I think we have a lot of clinical data, of course, and we also have a lot of initiatives with various organizations we call their joint ventures. And then a lot of financial data. And I think most of you may know, we have a great app we call our front door. All that digital data, then also related to customers' feedback, we get through surveys or within the app also. So all that, bringing that data together and unifying it, and as I think earlier mentioned, creating that link ID. The goal is basically using the data not only to understand the customer, but also proactively to help them stay healthy, because it's important to connect, but why do you want to connect all this data? So that we can tell, as I'm sure many of you familiar with 360 concept, but that is where for us that 360 means, in the sense, connecting all these various data sets we have, so that we can tell our story about a customer and their journey with us, basically.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to add,
Yeah.
I mean, one concept for me is when I think about Customer 360, it's so that the patient does not have a bad experience, right? In other words, if the data has not been joined, and then the patient's like, I've told you what my address is and you don't have it right over here, and I do have it right. So to me, the concept is to, not just not have a bad experience, but to create a better patient experience than what you would have without this type of solution. So to me, that's the big concept I take away from it, because it's call it a customer 360, a patient 360, a member 360, right? In a lot of situations out there today, you have payviders, right? So you're representing that patient as a consumer, as a patient, as a member, and so it's really important for them to have a good experience, right, and not be frustrated, right, by data that is not linked all together. So to me, that's the big concept.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Todd. I would just add not only a good experience, but a consistent experience, right? So Varma mentioned earlier around our joint ventures and around the different companies that we partner with. And our goal is to make sure that anyone that sees the Baylor Scott White logo has a consistent experience across all our different sites. So definitely want to make the experience better, want to make our customers, our patients healthy, but make it that a consistent experience across the board.
I think that's really interesting.
I was going to say that doesn't diminish, and Nick, you mentioned it is also the physicians, right, and all the other entities, right, that are associated with it as well. So we talk about customer 360, but really I think of it as entity 360 as well. So.
Yeah, sort of the concept of a person 360. Who is this person holistically? Are they a patient and a member and also a provider because they are an employee? Like, what are all the roles that person plays within my organization? And what's all the data that I need to better understand and aggregate about that? I think it's interesting that all three of you kind of ended up delineating on this concept of it's not just about good experience, and it's not even just about consistent experience. It's also about avoiding the bad experience. Like, you need to have all three of those. And if you can't execute on all three of those, then the patient might end up elsewhere. They might opt to go to another organization, to one of your competitors down the street, and seek care that way. So that's sort of a really interesting point that all three of you ended up making there. I'd love to hear too, what were the challenges around building this 360? Like, we already heard a little bit about this earlier, but Varma, you said 16 million patients, 30 million consumer identities, Epic, joint ventures. You've got all this broad, disparate array of data about a person that you're aggregating within Snowflake. What are some of the challenges you see, and how are you trying to overcome those challenges in order to deliver this more consistent experience, to build this more complete picture of someone's data?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I know we talked earlier as part of 361 is the consistency, because that is very important. That is one of the biggest challenge. I'll mention a little bit what that means. And the other one is the quality, because we all know when you interact with various source systems or various even organizations or various interfaces, you get very different sets of data. Some may provide their names differently. Some may include middle names, some may not. Some have different email addresses. So you can think of the challenges we may see when you're trying to integrate the data across all these sources we try to basically bring together as part of our big data. So that is one of the biggest challenge for us. Basically, is this same person? Because we don't have exactly same information, maybe what we are receiving from our key clinical system, because we get high quality from our key clinical system, but we may not get same thing when we, let's say, get from our Engage platform or our marketing platform, or even some of our joint ventures. So I think that is one of the biggest challenge for us. So that's where we need some system that can somehow understands, this person is same as this we got, so that we can link them together and then provide that better experience overall. So that's what I would say is one of our biggest challenge.
Makes sense. Cody, any color to add there?
So I think that Varma, the only thing I didn't hear him mention is just getting the data out of our old systems, right? So to his point, we have Epic, Snowflake, and joint venture systems, but we also had some legacy systems as well. So that was a huge challenge of getting data out of that and making sure that it was clean. And then we're constantly working with our payer partners, right, to determine how we can ingest data, what data should we ingest, and things of that nature. So that's the only color I'd add.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
I don't know how you do value-based care at risk without having clean data around that patient, right? I mean, it's just, it's hard enough as is, but I cannot imagine doing it without this. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
payer itself brings its own challenges. So exactly. So.
Yeah, Todd, to your point, in order to derive value from the data, you do first, like, it sounds almost trivial to say, oh, I have to be able to associate all the right data to the right patients, but it's really tricky for all the reasons, Varma, you said. Like, people move and change addresses, they get married and change names, data is entered with inconsistencies. It's just really tricky to ultimately associate all that data to the right person. But without that, what are you left with? Like, you're trying to build a customer 360, you end up with a customer 180. You end up with half the view of that person because you're not able to tie all their complete data together. And then, your analytics and AI that you're trying to build on top of that, all the interesting stuff that everyone's so excited about, can ultimately suffer, cannot be as impactful as it maybe could have been, especially around, to your point, value-based care, but kind of, all these different analytic models as well. Baylor Scott and White, both Cody and Varma, where was Snowflake already sitting within your architecture? What role is it playing? And Todd, please feel free to chime in here as well.
Yeah, I can start. Before Verato, of course, we do have, I think we started our journey with Snowflake almost about 3 years back. Before actually we had Snowflake, we had, I think as Cody mentioned earlier, some of the challenges with legacy platforms. We do have kind of on-prem IBM appliance we were using basically to, from our data warehousing perspective. But when we started this whole thing around customer and customer journey that we want to understand, that's when we kind of trying to find out, hey, what is the right platform for us to support and can scale. So that's when we partnered with Snowflake. Then what Snowflake did help before we brought Verato into it is basically kind of, hey, what is the platform that can scale and handle all these workloads that we were thinking of, and ultimately unifying this data. Because we want something that we can easily scale. What I mean by that is, hey, right now, that is one of the biggest challenge with before we brought Snowflake. The scaling was very tough because we always used to have, oh, this workload is being queued because the other workload is running still. So Snowflake helped us basically with the way we can create these virtual warehouses and segregate the workloads. So it played a big role building our scalable data platform, basically. So that is the main help that we got with being Snowflake as our key big data platform.
Yeah, I would. The thing I enjoy, I really love to see is that, and for all of you and your peers, your challenges are never ending, and from day to day, that challenge may require one analyst to run one SQL statement to get one answer, and because they have access to the data, it's governed, right? You've got the proper controls in place. A clinician or a business analyst can go get that answer. So you can go do that, and you can get speed to insight. But at the same time, to your point, it's like, oh, we've got a big problem, and that big problem is going to take some resources, and we can ramp up and handle that. And again, the beauty there sometimes is you can go tackle that big challenge and throw compute at it to go solve a problem. But then once you solve that problem, you're not paying for that compute anymore. You're back down to what maybe your normal run rate is. So that ability to burst, right, to meet the needs of something that's of dire need at a time is something that you and your peers definitely take advantage of with Snowflake, because stuff happens, right? And we want to be that platform that's there for you when you need us. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know the other thing that, of course, I mean, we were talking about before Verato, but also we felt, I think, where Snowflake journey is into all the stuff going on as not just only data platform, but how it is going to get into this whole AI side of it. And I think all those, we'll talk some of those maybe in the next slides, but played a big role in our decision making, basically, to bring Snowflake into our organization.
Yeah, I want to say we successfully made it a good ways into this webinar without really mentioning AI, given how many webinars talk about AI. So I think I'll take that as a win. So there is more to life than AI, but back to that point, it's super difficult for AI to be successful unless you've got a great foundation, right?
Data.
So yeah.
That is, we are hearing that time and again. Like, and by the way, for everyone with your bingo cards, we said AI, and now we've said it 3 or 4 times in the last 30 seconds. So please check that one off your bingo card. But it really is like the more, I mean, AI is a hot topic for a reason. Is because you've got platforms like Snowflake that can do amazing things to start to build AI models and really go to market with those. But this accurate identity foundation is absolutely necessary, and we hear that time and again from companies. Like, you can't build high fidelity AI without high fidelity data. And Todd, that actually kind of cues us up to this, the next like question, the next topic. How does Snowflake speed analytics and AI readiness once you've got that accurate identity foundation? Can you speak to Snowflake's capabilities and some of the use cases there that you're seeing?
Yeah, no, I kind of teased it right as we were kind of getting into this, but the big concept I'm having a lot of conversations around with speed to insight is that with AI, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. And what I mean by that is that, there may be projects, that Baylor Scott White is working on whereby, yeah, we've got the entities figured out, but we've got a data quality issue for clinical data, right? And that you've got some serious work to do to get comfortable to go run a model, to go look at, some type of medical coding challenge or whatever that might be. So that might take some time, right? I call it weeks, call it months. And so there's that walking aspect of AI. But the other thing to recognize is that, let's say that you've got Verato in place and you've got the entities figured out, is that you can chew gum, meaning that there is a way to generate value out of using generative AI and using models. And our goal with Snowflake is for you to be able to experiment at scale, right? And then identify value quickly. And great examples of that is the just released yesterday is the clinicaltrials.gov Cortex knowledge extension. So right now, Cody's he's over on the side right now going into our Snowflake marketplace, and he's grabbing the clinicaltrials.gov marketplace item. It's free, right? Snowflake is maintaining the clinicaltrials.gov data so that all of our customers can simply fire up a Cortex search service and then start asking questions about clinical trials. But here's the analytic, the fun part. Baylor Scott White has their own proprietary data that you can now ask a question, right, with Snowflake Intelligence, and it will blend without that data will never leave Baylor Scott White Snowflake ecosystem, right? But now we've brought PubMed and clinical trials type data, and now you can gain these insights that, I don't know, Cody, would have taken, in pharma weeks, months to do before, just to try to go out and get that type of insight. So that speed of insight is massive. Now, it is still generative AI. It might hallucinate a little bit, but we put in place the mechanisms to look at the SQL it generated. It will go back and provide the references as to the annotations as to where it got that information. And obviously your clinicians and analysts can go and validate it. But that speed to insight is undeniable. So, and even people like me that are not, IT experts can go build, these things themselves. So it's been fun to watch.
I think you're setting yourself up for our next topic too, which is specifically what makes Snowflake Healthcare and Life Sciences Data Cloud an ideal platform. You've already alluded to this concept of the marketplace, like some of the AI capabilities, which are all really compelling. Can you speak a little bit more to those and anything else that Snowflake, either as a data cloud, as a vendor, as a partner, can help enable?
I think the concept I would hit here is please stop copying data. I think that if you look at one concept underneath that I really haven't brought up yet, right? It's kind of really resonates with our customers and myself when I was a customer is that get data to its most analytically friendly state and please stop copying it, right? And that's the big core concept of Snowflake, is bringing applications like Verato, bringing AI models, bringing all of this subject matter expertise from customers and letting them, right, work on that data. And there's not a need to, right, to run off to IT and be like, oh, I got to go make a copy of the data because I got to go move it over here to go do something, right? Let's flip that. Let's bring, right, applications and bring capabilities to the data. And because you've spent so much time, with Verato and have this beautifully cleansed data set, the last thing you want to do is go create a copy of that, because what happens when you do that? They're now no longer connected, right? So if you make that copy and go off, and not that any analyst would ever download a data set and use RStudio or anything like that. I'm sure Cody's never seen that, but what you want to do, right, is activate that data where it is. And I think that's kind of the why Snowflake's an ideal platform for that.
Totally. Yeah, this concept of bringing the data to where you're already working, or where you are as a data analyst, is so impactful, because then, to your point, like, as a data analyst, you don't want to be going and doing a bunch of swivel chair. You don't want to be going and doing a bunch of data copy. Like, you want the data to be where you want it when you need it, and then to have it be in this ideal state so that you can build off of it. So that's a really powerful concept. Cody, maybe this next question is for you. I know you guys had an existing MDM solution, an existing master data management solution. Can you speak a little bit more to the impetus for moving off of that? Was there something challenging about it? Was like, what was sort of underlying that decision? So
the underlying decision, we were on IBM Initiate for many, many years. And the underlying decision was we were on an unsupported platform. Our hardware was old and unsupported as well. And there was just a lack of investment from the vendor that we saw. And so after talking through and looking at the marketplace, we found Verato. And parallel to that, as Varma kind of mentioned earlier, related to what they've been working on from a customer perspective, they also found Verato to solve the customer problems that they were having. So we landed together as an organization as Verato being the best solution for us as a EMPI solution moving forward. And as mentioned, we signed that contract about 1.5 years ago. And so very excited about what we have currently with Verato, very excited about our future with Verato, and happy to be off that old platform.
Yeah, we're really excited to be working with you guys too. Any color, Pharma, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, as Cody said, of course, we were also, what we have is we built our own custom kind of EMPI solution, if you really look at it from customer perspective. That is one thing we felt, I think, not easy to manage, maintain, and also the type of accuracy we need. So that is one thing definitely we started looking for some other solution that can help us. So I think partnering with Cody, what they were trying to do definitely helped us to get to that contract. So I think that is because our legacy is basically our own inbuilt custom logic, very rigid. It's not like what Verato brings it, because Verato brings a lot of value to identify the matches that we were not able to do basically.
I'll just keep adding too, just the way that Verato is a SaaS solution for us allows us to speed to functionality, right? And so I mean, AI, obviously is in the conversation now, but 1.5 years ago, it wasn't as much in the conversation. And the tools and the support that Verato brings to the table, I think, is something we're excited about.
Love it. I see a question in from the audience too that I might address it here just because it's sort of relevant, which is, I assume you use automation when possible to do initial matching. What's the hit rate for a perfect match? How do you manage the imperfect matches? Does that require human interventions? I'll maybe take a first swing at this, and then Cody and Varma, if you wouldn't mind adding any color that you might have. So the Verato matching solution, as we've been alluding to, is sort of best in breed, like incredibly accurate. We've brought to bear a new technology to market called referential matching. And we have a patented approach to referential matching, and it's been independently verified to be 24% more accurate than anything else out there, even the most sophisticated algorithms. And what it entails is we have our own pre-built, pre-tuned algorithmic models that look for data fuzziness and things like that. What are the nicknames and phonetic similarities and typos and things of that nature, little data discrepancies between different records. And we've got algorithms that can overcome those. But the big data discrepancies are what are always so challenging in healthcare. Big data discrepancies like someone changing their name, someone changing their address, someone having one phone, home phone and a cell phone, or changing their phone. All these major data or records that are missing core identifying attributes like birth dates or social security numbers, all these core challenges are incredibly difficult, especially in healthcare. And then you layer on top of that in healthcare the challenges around twins and juniors and seniors and all these other tricky data scenarios. And so we've brought our own reference data into the equation, a curated national data set that we manage and curate in-house of identity data, so we can overcome things like name changes and nickname changes and typos and phonetic similarities and twins and juniors and seniors and all the really tricky things that are most difficult in healthcare. And all that's out of the box accurate with a lot of ability to configure and tune that. But for healthcare, it's really important, obviously, to be accurate out of the box. So to answer your question, yes, there's a ton of automation. The objective is for there to be the most automation. We want to get the most automated matches made initially with minimal human intervention required. But of course, there's always the ability to go and manage and steward the data through human intervention too. But it is a very differentiated technology in the market. And not only do analytics teams love it because you get all your data unified, but everyone else across the enterprise will appreciate it too. Health information management teams, the MPI teams, the teams that sort of rely on this accurate unified data for patients. So Cody, any color you want to add there?
No, I mean, I don't think I could say it any better than you did, Nick. I mean, like it exactly was the sales pitch that Baylor listened to, and that we're again very excited to be a part of the Verato community.
Yeah, I'll add I get to talk to my peers outside of healthcare and life sciences, and it's I also get some of the folks that work in this space that are trying to get into healthcare and do what Verato does. And they come in with typically a fair amount of ignorance, not stupid, very, very smart people, but they have an ignorance as to what it means to do this inside healthcare, because we're talking about, these are clinical use cases in advertising and retail. If you're at you got a high 90 percentile, 92% match rate, and you're accurate most of the time, that's okay. You're not going to harm someone. But it's a whole nother level of scrutiny when you come into healthcare. So I think that's just to know that there's, we get it, we appreciate it, right? We know it, but it's interesting to see our peers in other industries kind of wrap their heads around that. So,
yeah, I think a couple of other things I want to add too. I think I know Nick mentioned the reference data. That is one thing I think we liked it a lot. That helps, I think, quite a bit. I think if I remember, Nick, I don't know, it's 300 million households or something like that, if I remember the count, that you have the identities. That helped quite a bit, actually, matching that we were not able to do before. The other thing is, I know as any technology, any automation, there are always challenges, some of the things that can be matched. But one thing we liked is that they call the matching tiers, basically. You can define these tiers and then have different rules for each of these tiers. So that gives you actually a lot of flexibility. Maybe some type of data, you want to apply these rules. For some, you can be a lot more stringent. So I think that those kind of things, I think, help from technology perspective, I think, to get better matching rate to basically than maybe what you see with other technologies.
Yeah, this concept of tiering the data, to Todd's point, like you can't get it wrong in healthcare, but at the same time, you've got records where you might be a little bit more comfortable getting it a little bit wrong or loosening the matching criteria a little bit. Not clinical records, you have to get those right 100% of the time. But what if you only have an email address for somebody from a list of leads that you're going and targeting in your geography, or just their name and address? So being able to loosen the criteria for those sorts of records without influencing the matching that you really have to get right 100% of the time for those clinical records, that's that ability to sort of build out those different match tiers, which is another unique capability of ours. All right, final question, and then we'll start fielding some from the audience, because I see a few others coming in here too. What are you most excited about for the future of healthcare and life sciences with Snowflake and AI? And Todd, maybe I'll cue you up there, and then Cody and Varma, I might ask you a similar flavor of a question just to get your thoughts on too.
Yeah, I'll kind of double down on what I just kind of mentioned around the data assets and being able to run artificial intelligence on top of what I just call, for lack of a better phrase, blended data sets. The ability to take, it's just phenomenal to see Snowflake and all data warehouses. Data warehouses were born in this structured, semi-structured world of data, and then in comes large language models, and suddenly this massive amount of corpus of unstructured data is now flowing into Snowflake. So what I'm excited about is what I call the blend, right? That ability that says, I have this massive amount of unstructured data, the work that's been done by our customers and partners to bring that unstructured data together, by the way, and that can augment, right, the Verato type, right, your entity data, and then blending that and putting that together with the structured data that you've spent so much time on, the EHR data and et cetera. That's what we're just, right, it's at the beginning. I say the beginning, and some customers have just grabbed this, right, and are doing it in phenomenal ways. But seeing the world come together of structured and unstructured data is, to me, what's blowing, to me, everything else out of the water is that blend of that. It seems so simple, but yet, right, with agentic AI capabilities and how models are able to do that and generate SQL and all of that, it's fun to watch. So,
Varma, Cody, any color to add?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, I will let Cody speak afterwards. But one thing is, from the future perspective, as I think we all know what AI can play, but pure simple data perspective, one of the things we are trying to do is how do we unlock the value from the data we have. So one of the things is, as I think Todd mentioned earlier, Cortex analyst, the NLQ stuff. So that is, I think we were thinking can help us basically asking question directly to the data without going to our engineering team or our analyst team to get what they really need. So that will help us, I think, some of the unlocking the value that we already have the data. So they can quickly get insights from it without creating a insight or a graph or something for them. So I think that is one thing, definitely one of the exciting thing. And then, of course, we are not, at least from our current state perspective, we are not doing too much in unstructured data yet. But that is where Snowflake Intelligence, because we are experimenting some of these components to see how some of this technology can help us, one, speed to bring data into our data platform, and then get value out of that data quicker. So I think that is where we feel Snowflake and AI combination that will help us to get there quicker.
Yeah, I would just say that these capabilities will still enable that consistent customer experience across all our different platforms, which is what we're laser focused on. But I also want to take the lens back on our internal teams. I think that these tools give our internal operational teams, they add so much value as well. And so they're able to focus on much more strategic items, and while they're still getting the information right at a patient level, right? So still, just again, not only the customer impact, but just the great operational impact that these tools are giving our teams.
Totally.
Yeah, Nick.
Speaking of,
Nick,
go ahead,
I forgot one little tidbit, and this has just been happening the last couple of days. So I'm fortunate enough to be building, right, some of these Snowflake Intelligence agents, and what's blown me away is the models are getting good enough now where you ask it one question and it answers your question, and yet it thinks, well, other people are asking questions like this, and they're also asking this follow-up question. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that for you. So instead of just getting the answer that you asked for, it actually is going and expanding. And I've seen that in some of the PubMed searches I've done, blending some my background, again, pharmacy, and looking at some therapeutic data. And then suddenly it says, oh, by the way, right, you might also be interested in this data as well. So it's generating insights that you didn't even really ask for, but are very relevant to what you were asking it. So that's kind of the really fun things that are happening, to me just in the last couple of days.
I love that. That sort of begs the question too, like, so this technology is advancing at such a rapid pace, and we've spoken a little bit about sort of maybe the near future, but put yourself maybe 3 to 5 years from now. Varma, Cody, Todd, like, what does best practice look like? Where do you want Baylor Scott White or Snowflake to, what do you think the future looks like in terms of being able to build Customer 360 and provide these better experiences and prevent these bad experiences? Can you provide any insight there as to sort of where your thoughts are and what you're building towards as a North Star?
Well, I don't want to repeat myself again a little bit, I guess. I mean, our North Star is the customer experience, right? So our goal is to make sure that customer experience is as seamless as possible. I think, though, what these tools are allowing us to look at is, how do you think of identity, right? Do you think of identity as a patient, or do you think of identity as an individual in the ecosystem, right? And so these tools are allowing us to think about that in a different way, and again, enhance that experience overall.
Yeah, I think definitely, I mean, technology is very important, but I think, as Cody definitely repeated quite a bit around customer experience and customer, I think that is what on everyone's mind is our customer. I'm sure most of you heard Healthcare 2.0. So kind of giving basically what customer wants. So some of those is, I think most probably heard about Baylor Scott White. We are building a lot of products that basically what customer wants. So we are thinking a lot of those basically from bringing all this data together, so we understand what they are really looking for, and then how can we provide that to the customer. So it's all about customer basically. So
yeah, I'll put the thing I'm working on now, which is the tip of the spear, is patient generated wellness fitness data. 3 to 5 years, that will be in there, right? For I'll go ahead and tell, Cody's nodding his head, right? Like it will be part of this data. So think clinically, that ability to look at, I'll give a shout out to Whoop just because they're a Snowflake customer, but that ability to blend that patient generated heart rate data, resting heart rate, VO2 max, right? You name it, to blend that with the diagnostic data that's inside the EHRs to have that full longitudinal data set. It's just going to make, back to patient experience, right? You're going to have so much more information when that patient presents in the unfortunate circumstance of an emergency room or what have you. But having that wellness fitness type data, and I'm seeing the wellness fitness companies really, right, digging into really how do we help that patient more holistically. And I'm going to say, I think there's going to be a whole lot of partnerships in that world. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Being someone who does wear wearables, and that goes to the over-the-counter blood glucose monitoring. Right now, they're available over the counter. There are patients, customers, they want that access to that data. And I personally, I want it blended with my data from Baylor Scott White, right? I mean, that's what I want to see. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Totally. And then being able to unleash, AI and machine learning on top of that to better predict and figure out outcomes and next best. Anyway, it's incredibly powerful, and I totally agree. And it comes back to that question of being able to associate the right data to the right person. So with that, I think, if I could leave you with just 3 things from our discussion today. Identity is this foundational capability. You got to know who is who as the foundation to build anything else on top of that. And this next generation master data management capability is how you achieve that with this more accurate identity resolution and these other capabilities that we've alluded to as well, with Customer 360 ultimately being a real game changer for organizations, not just to acquire and retain customers, but to do that through better experiences, more consistent experiences, and preventing bad experiences for patients. I will look to, I know we've only got a couple minutes left. I'll maybe take one question from the audience, and any other questions that have been submitted, maybe we can follow up with you individually. How were you able to gain broader organizational buy-in to like pursuing this 360 to, switching out a whole MDM platform? Do you have any tips, Varma and Cody, for those on the phone, best practices or experiences that you had?
I can talk about the EMPI component, and maybe Varma can talk about his. But again, we have so many different areas where this data, where the data touches within Baylor Scott White. So we had to create an operational task force, if you will, to identify who we wanted or how we wanted to enhance EMPI across Baylor Scott White. And so it was really just, it wasn't an IS decision. It was a joint decision driven by IS, led by IS, but then had our HIM team, our RevCycle team, our digital platforms team, all a seat at the table to make sure that we all made the right decision, and in order to move forward. So I just really think it's reaching across the aisle. It's making sure that you have your operational stakeholders involved and making sure that they understand the current state, and then what the future state looks like. Varma.
Yeah. Sorry, I clicked on mute button, I think. So the important aspect of it is the buy-in from various stakeholders. So it's not just a technology decision that, you just as a technology team or a platform team can make a decision. So that is important from our perspective, making sure our analytics team that understands the value and importance of it. So that help, I think, ultimately getting the necessary approvals to get this technology, basically.
Makes sense. Well, I know we've got about a couple minutes left. I see some other questions in the queue, but I'm afraid we won't have time for them. Mackenzie, I'll cue you to come on in just a second, but I would just first like to say, hey, thank you so much, Cody, Varma, and Todd for joining our webinar. I know I've learned a lot. I know you've been able to share a ton of really great information with me and with the rest of the audience. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights with all of us.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.